right, guys, welcome to the Crazy Juicy Love podcast. We're in quarantine. I'm with my girl, Lidia Bonilla, who's a pleasure strategist. Yes. So tell us, what is a pleasure strategist?
Well, what I do is that I help women create the relationships they always wanted in their 30s through the discovery of pleasure. So I work, I use a number of different methodologies, but everything is pretty much centered around pleasure.
So how did you even get it? Can you tell me some backstory? How did you even get into being a pleasure strategist, and why is this so important to you and to bring this to the world for women?
Yeah, so it was all, I like to say by conscious accident. So I had a personal organizer who came to my house. She was in my bedroom, in this room, looking through different drawers, and she found my sex toys. And I was like, oh my God, where do people put them? And so she said, oh, you can put them in a regular box, cardboard, whatever. I was like, oh, that's ugly. So I was, I tried different options. I couldn't find anything. And then I just forgot it. And then some months later, I went into Babeland looking for a storage product. And they were like, no, we don't have any, but we get that question all the time. So I was like, wow, I'll just, like that, I just said, you know what, I'll just create one. So in the process of, created the product, I put it out there, sold it to retail stores, launched through a Kickstarter campaign and all of that.
Wow.
What I realized is that I was much more interested in the conversations I had with people about sex than the actual product. So people were asking me about my product, like, oh yeah, I'm selling this thing. But I would get so caught up in what they wanted and what was going on in their lives and all of that I became, just more interested in that. And I've had my brand now, or House of Plume. I've had that for about 5 years, and I'm actually closing it up now because I realized actually that I was more valuable than the product, and I was actually hiding behind it.
Wow,
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So then I just, really created my own methodology around bringing pleasure to my life. I am pretty much a type A personality. Anal, retent. I have everything in here stored in a box that has a label. I'm anal as shit. And I had to pretty much learn how to enjoy life. I was like, I didn't accomplish anything. I have to accomplish something first, and then I can enjoy something. So yeah, I'm my own client.
Oh, I hear that. I am too. So before we get into some things that I really noticed on your website and, the tips for couples and singles during this quarantine time. So I'm just talk about pleasure and what do you like? Because that could be interpreted in so many ways in pleasure.
Yes.
So what do you mean by pleasure?
By pleasure, what I mean, and I go strictly by the dictionary's definition of pleasure, which is anything that brings you a sense of satisfaction and joy.
Right.
So that could be anything. A lot of that could be sexual, could be non-sexual. It could be, popping bubble wrap. I love popping bubble wrap. That's a pleasure for me.
I love that too, actually.
It's so
I don't know why it's so
it's satisfying. You know why? Because you get it. It's something that you can complete. It's like, boop, it's finished.
It's so mundane. It's just you could just get into it and just
keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Exactly. So yeah, it could be anything. A lot. When people hear the word pleasure, a lot of times what they do gravitate to is something sexual, and it's really anything involving the senses. Yeah, that's where most people's minds go, and it's anything to do with your senses, really. So your sense of smell, touch, all of that sensory, your environment. So visual, all of that could really be a vehicle to experience pleasure.
Okay. So I am going to go into some things on your website with the House of Plume, with the toy box, which I love the quotes, and I picked 4 of them, and I just would love to, to elaborate. So the first one is, don't get into a relationship with someone who doesn't like oral sex. You will regret it. Now, yes. I agree with that wholeheartedly, because I've been there with one of my relationships, and the oral sex.
What a waste of time! What a waste of time!
The oral sex was so bad that I would turn it down. And I was just like, I have to be with somebody. Just like, I'm good. You know, you don't have to do that. Just like, you know. So, you know, why is that important? Like, why did you have that on there?
Well, so my target audience, directly and indirectly, are mostly women. And why I say indirectly and directly is because half of my customers are men buying the product for the women in their life. So for women, first of all, a huge number of women actually don't even experience orgasm. And the most that do have to have clitoral stimulation. So it's incredibly important for most women to experience clitoral stimulation. And for me, that's oral sex. And that's, for a lot of women, that's what it is. And so I was in a relationship for on and off for like 4 years with someone who didn't enjoy it. And it was like awful. And once I realized like how good it could be, I was like, oh my God, I wasted my fucking time.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine, and he's in a relationship, and his wife doesn't like giving him. Just like, he goes, I miss it. And I go, wow, it's just a missing that happens in the relationship that for me is important. And I'm really glad you have that down there. So the next thing you have on there is, I literally burst out laughing, and I reposted it on Instagram. It says, having sex because you feel for this guy is, having sex because you feel for this guy's charity pussy. And I strongly disagree with it. Give it to someone who has a real need. Like, what is that?
So it's just, in so many conversations I've had with women, and also like before, in the beginning of my own journey around pleasure and sexuality, women I've heard so many times, oh, I just did it because I felt bad. You know, I felt bad because, you know, he really likes me, and, you know, something happened or whatever, something they felt guilty about, or some sense of obligation, and then they would, you know, have sex, and they would continue to have sex and not enjoy it, and it'd be like, oh, but I feel bad, you know, like they don't say like, I don't like that, or what you're doing actually doesn't work, and no, but I don't want to hurt his feelings, I feel bad, you know, and it's such a disservice to yourself. It really is actually really dishonoring yourself, and it's dishonoring to that person.
Yeah, and it's like, it's really leading them on. It's like you're lying basically to that person.
You're lying. It's a lie.
It's a big fat lie. And so when you deal with women or people in that situation, how do you coach them around how to tackle that? Because I'm sure a lot of people don't know how to have that conversation, because it's a very awkward conversation, especially if you're already somehow intertwined with each other. How do you have that conversation? How do you teach women how to have that conversation?
So what I do is first, you know, get to the root of why they, you know, what they feel bad about, you know, what is it about it that is confronting for them, you know, and a lot of times it's because, oh, I don't want to hurt their, you know, this person's feelings. And men really do have like their sense of themselves and their sexual performance, like really neck and neck. Like it's part of their identity almost. And to it's not really their fault. You know, it's how society, how men are raised. That's part of who you are. And so women have also been brought up to believe that they have to play into that by playing into what would make them feel good versus what would make them themselves feel good.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, getting to that. What is it that you're really, what is it you're really concerned about? And then as far as having a conversation, the first thing I say is to not have it, not to not have it in a place where don't have it like during sex. It's either like before, in an environment like at a restaurant, totally non-threatening, where you're just talking about something. Or you can also do something like I call it being a pleasure map, which is where you go through each other's bodies and go, okay, I like this, I like that, I don't like this. And, oh, by the way, when you do that thing, I kind of actually don't like that.
That's a good segue.
And most men will be like, why didn't you just tell me that before? Here I'm thinking I'm doing something, and so because men really do want to please.
Right, and it's also, you're basically, what I'm hearing is creating a safe space for both of you to be open, and you're in that environment, and then you just bring it up.
Yes.
I like that. I like that a lot. And one of them is it says, don't tell him you came when you didn't. Stop doing that, don't you?
Yeah.
I died laughing. So, well, because I, as a gay man or a man, like, I've been there before, and like, I'm not like this like bottom, and I've been in that situation where I faked it because I was not into that person or they were doing something that I didn't like or didn't want. I couldn't, like what you just said, don't say it during sex, but it's like, well, what I do, I pretend that like I'm tired, or I pretend that I did something that like I did orgasm. So, why is that important? I mean, it's really important, like, to stop doing that. Because again, it's leading somebody on.
Yeah, it's leading someone on, and it's like, it's just creating another layer. It's just creating another deception. And, when you dishonor the relationship, you dishonor that person, but you're really dishonoring yourself by telling that type of lie, particularly on your body, because it does stay with you. It does stay with you, because then you have to tell another lie. Eventually, if they don't know that doesn't work, what you did, they're gonna do it again.
Yeah.
They're gonna do it again, and then you're gonna have to lie again, and then you're gonna have to feel bad.
Yeah.
And sex is all about feeling good and connection. And here you are creating this barrier, and then you're not even and it doesn't even feel good. So then it's like, oh, what's the point? Why am I even doing this in the first place?
Good point. Like, those, I could definitely see how those barriers of like just slowly building. That definitely, like, for me, happened to my first relationship. It's like pretending that I like this one thing, and when in fact I didn't at all. And
and it just doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't. And it affects your relationship. You don't know that it does, but it generally does affect your relationship when you lie about you orgasm or you like something in your relationship. It's almost like keeping it a secret, and those secrets and then you're getting away with it. Then most likely you try to get away with other things. I mean, it could lead you down to so many dark roads in a relationship.
And that's just the relationship. And that, if you look at your whole life, because I really do believe sex is like the totality of your whole life. So you do that in other areas of your life. You're not straight in other areas. Or you try to sugarcoat it or play it down. I rarely meet women who don't do that in some other area in life.
And the last one, which I believe I quoted this before, I don't remember this, but it's such a powerful quote. It says, shame has no place in pleasure. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's no way to feel good if you are ashamed. And, shame is just like, it's part of the human condition. It's what we experience. Even some animals even experience shame. but it's you cannot feel good and feel shame at the same time.
Mm.
So it in essence like kills it off. So if there's something that you enjoy and you can't say that that's what you enjoy, or there's aspects of your sexuality that other people don't know about. So like, let's say everyone thinks you are 100% straight, but when in fact you're actually bisexual. That impacts how you experience bisexuality. It's just shame just doesn't allow you to be 100% present in what you're experiencing, therefore cuts off your experience to feel pleasure.
That's a really good point, because my first instinct or example that comes to my mind is a show, oh my god, I can't think of the show right now, Love is Blind. So have you seen that? So have you seen that?
I have not seen it. I've seen everything on Facebook about it, which is like, I always feel like I saw it already.
So,
but I haven't seen it. No.
So in Love is Blind, there's a character, his name is Carlton, and he's bisexual. Now, in the very first episode, he brings it up that he's afraid to mention it to Diamond, who is the woman who he was quote unquote marrying. And right away, I knew that's shame, because he hid this whole thing the whole time. And when the moment came, he got so weird and so angry. And the minute he told her, she was like, okay. And she's like, well, why didn't you tell me earlier? And then he flipped it on her. So he was like, see, I told you, you're not gonna, like, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to be an adult here and have this conversation with you. And now you're flipping out. It's like, that's not me, that's you. So your shame will eat you up and cause you, I think, in one way or another, will sabotage your relationship when you're carrying that shame about, like, say for instance, your sexuality or what you like.
Yeah, it could really turn into like rage, so like, it could put you like animals when they're in a corner. If you corner a cat, they'll fuck you up.
True.
They will fuck up, So shame, really, it's like putting yourself in the corner. And so if anyone starts to, poke at that, bring that up, of course, one of the responses would to be defensive. And if you are defensive enough, then you're going to get angry. And if you're angry with no real intention, then it becomes rage. And then that whole, whatever you're creating could totally be impacted.
And when you're dealing with a lot of women and couples, like, what is some of the shame that is common that comes up when you're talking to a lot of women?
So many different. In essence, it's a lot of, unresolved trauma with respect to, like, perhaps like abuse, sexual abuse, or just experiencing sex at an age, maybe at too of an early of an age, or in not an environment that was healthy. Because women, what they go through, and this is, I look at my personal experience as a when I went from a girl to an adolescent, is that, girls are protected. My parents protected me as a girl. And then when I became an adolescent and when I began to develop, and then I was like, I walked to school and did all that stuff, then it became, you better not let a boy touch you. You can't do this, you can't do that. You can't be outside after dark. You can't go there alone. It became like I had to put a wall around myself to defend myself from men, versus when I was a girl, I was protected. I would then have the expectation that I was supposed to protect myself from all sorts of unwanted attention.
Wow. And
that kind of shift, without any kind of real like explanation about it or any kind of like self-love around it, really does create shame. I became, ashamed to a certain extent about my body, but then I became like, because we both from Miami, then it was like, fuck it, let me get naked.
I
It
know.
was like the opposite. You know, like my clothes is gonna be as tiny as they can be. So yeah, that there's a lot around that, and then there's shame around like when you tried something and it didn't work. So you know, I've worked with men before, and so men also have a tremendous amount of shame around sex. And one of them is to be like, if you are ever sexually rejected. So it's like, oh, I wanted to have sex, she didn't. And, you know, I said, okay, I backed off. But that rejection, quote unquote, is like so damning and so shaming. So it just depends really on your personal experiences. But a lot of those things just end up like not healed, not addressed, not dealt with. And then people expect to have relationships that work, and you expect to have, you know, 4 or 5 orgasms when you have sex. And you can't without dealing with all that.
Yeah, so I'm curious of what shame did you deal with yourself and your body, and how did you start the process of healing for some others who are listening, that so they can start to tackle that on their own, to start their own healing and even recognize their own shame.
What shame did I have about my body? Oh my gosh, how many things was it?
Well, I mean, I can tell you my own. Like, I used to, like, especially there's so much body shame in the gay community that, like, just be like wanting to have the perfect body and not be willing to put myself out there, especially since I've had, you know, a skin discoloration. Like, when I first got vitiligo, I had so much chance, like, nobody's gonna ever want me. That's what I made that mean. Like, nobody's gonna ever want me or have to have sex with me.
Yeah.
And I immediately stopped, like, dating, going out, trying to have sex or anything. And when I did start dating, I was so uncomfortable. What are they gonna say when I take off my clothes? Like, what are they gonna see? The spots. Like, I go into this whole dialogue in my head.
Yeah.
And I would even, then I was like, okay, I would even start to put that I had vitiligo on my profile so they can know what they can know. I don't have to like say it. I don't have to like, you know, it's just like.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big deal.
A big deal, this whole thing. And it wasn't until I started doing this exercise that Mastin Gibson out. It was like a daily self-love routine, and like look in the mirror every day for 30 days. And looking at the thing that you hate the most about your body and just like giving it love and appreciation. And that literally changed my thoughts and belief around that. And I took it off my profile, and I just stopped having to introduce myself with this, you know, skin disease. I totally get that. Oh my gosh. So how many, I could probably just do like a body scan, different shades. So it's probably my nose was my eyebrows. They used to call me Burnt Ernie. They're not as thick as they used to be, but back when I was a kid, they were like this thick. I was called Burnt Ernie. You're called Burnt and Ernie?
It was Burnt Ernie, yeah.
You were really buff. Oh God.
And then like skinny eyebrows became in, and then I was super overpuffed. And my mother said, you know, you keep doing that, you're not gonna have any eyebrows. Watch. My mother's Cuban. And I was like, whatever. And so now I got little spots. Like, now I wish I had that they grew like that, the way they were full that way. So that was one. Eyebrows. My legs are like thick. And though it got attention from men, I've always wanted like slender, like, you know, like running legs, not like stocky legs. And so it took a while to like my legs. My feet, huge. You know, I had to deal with that because then it was like, I can never find shoes. So yeah, all that impacts, you know, women. If you don't like, just know that, you know, I'm fine for how I am. the latest shame that I dealt with was my hair. You know, I'd gone gray probably like 5
A lot of
6 years
people,
ago.
a lot of men too deal with that gray.
And I was like, nope, I'm not ready for that. So I went blonde to deal with it. And I love being blonde. Blonde was fun. But then I had to go lighter and lighter to deal with how much gray I had at the corners. And then my hair would routinely fall out because I would do all kinds of stuff to it. And my hairstylist was like, girl, won't you, your hair is great. Just go gray. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So finally I went gray. And then I got so many compliments about it, you know, and then I just like, oh, this is who I am. You know, I'm gray. Okay. It's not the biggest deal that I thought it was. And then everybody else became gray. You know, everyone dyed their hair gray. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, that radical acceptance is so important. And I think that's what that exercise that I did with Bob Mass and Kip, the daily love mirror exercise every day, really radically loving and accepting myself and changing the belief around each little thing. And that's what was really stopping me, those beliefs.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So now going into the tips, you know, I mean, it's a really good segue actually to really helping people, you know, so really while people were in quarantine, it's really such a really good time for people to dive into pleasure as a single person and as a couple. So let's first start off with like singles, like what are 3 things that singles can do to really explore and get into pleasure so they can just like feel good about themselves and feel good about their bodies and themselves?
Yeah. So, you know, here's one thing I'll just say about that, or about the expression of pleasure, period, is that really, you know, pleasure is your own responsibility. So no matter what kind of relationship you're in, whether you're single, you're poly, you're married for a gazillion years, it's 100% your responsibility. So my, you know, tips and advice it actually wouldn't vary that much from, you know, someone being in a relationship or not. It's just, you know, because, you know, being in a relationship is kind of just the vehicle to express that. But you kind of have to be on that path, you know, on that road already. So one thing I'd say for singles, for anyone right now, is that, you know, release the need to take a whole bunch of things on, you know. So our society is set up, you know, that you got to be, in order for you to be productive, you must know things. Which is one of the reasons why so many people have so much debt around, you know, college, and they want to, you want to do something. Oh, I got to go to school for it. Oh, I got to get, no, you don't need to like learn a bunch of shit, you know? So just like be with yourself, relax, actually take this time to do nothing. And nothing is so scary for people.
I had a hard, one of my best friends said that to me. He said, you know, a couple of years ago, he said, you don't know how to do nothing. I was like, what do you mean? I do got to do nothing. When I'm on my time off, I'm like, so he said, no, like, you don't know how to like stop, do nothing, binge. He said, when the last time you binge watch like a series? I was like, or just like not spend a day without creating or pursuing something. And I was like, I couldn't think. And I was like, oh, I need to add that to my life. Because I realized how much important, because it was like, everything else was wearing me out. I was getting exhausted. Yeah.
And, you know, creating space, you know, really is like the first step in experiencing pleasure. You really just do have to create the space in your life, in your physical, the physicality in your actual space. All of that impacts, you know, how you experience pleasure. So okay, sure, you can learn a bunch of skills, you can learn Japanese and all that. But if it's not a real, like, oh my God, I would love to do that, don't take it on. You know? So that's one thing I would say. And then respect to space and being a couple, or even if you live with a roommate, is that you're in this routine where you're home like all the time with people. you know, and that can totally change like the dynamic of a relationship once you're like in this enclosed space. It could, you know, kind of bubble over.
Yes.
So I would say, you know, create like a structure, really create like a schedule if you can, if your space is big enough to say, okay, somehow or another in this space, we're going to have like alone time. So I'm going to be in the bedroom from, I don't know, this time to this time. And
yes.
then if we can, you know, not work in the same area. I have a girlfriend, I spoke to her yesterday, and she said, you know, she lives in she has 2 floors in her house. And so she has that privilege and luxury. But she was saying, she's like, yeah, my husband, he tried to come and work with me because he like wanted to chat like coworkers. And I just looked at him like he was crazy and was like, and then that was it of their co-working. And he just went into his own space. She has her own space downstairs, and you know, it works for them. So if you don't have that kind of space, try to create it somehow or another. Yeah. So that way you can create some kind of normalcy.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'd say to do. Let's see. Some other things is to switch it up, you know. So even in like, you know, masturbation, you could, you know, if you know your body well enough, you know what like gets you there. And she's like, oh, all right, I just want to hurry up and go to sleep. I can do this 5 minutes, you know. So, but then that becomes, though it feels good, it is also it also could be numbing, you know. Particularly if you use toys, it could actually be numbing. So, you know, switch it up, switch up, you know, well, the positions that you use, the toys that you use, perhaps like, you know, start to use different toys. You know, anything that would kind of trick the mind into thinking that something new is happening, and then, you know, create, like, you know, kind of alert your senses.
That's a very good point. I was, and it really brought to my attention there's a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, dealing with men. And so which I was very surprised. He talks about porn, and he has an exercise in the book. He encouraged men to not watch porn for 30 days. And he said most men don't know how to explore or get themselves off without a visual stimulant. So he was like, turn off the iPhone, turn off the computer, and learn how to please yourself without a stimulant. Like touch your body, touch like what feels good to you, like really explore your body and get to know yourself as a man, because most men, again, have not done that. And it's a really good way for men to really get to know themselves, what they like, what they don't like, what they want by themselves.
Yeah, that's a great exercise. Because there are men that just watch porn and they're not even like trying to get off or trying to masturbate. They just watch it. It just becomes a habit.
I was on the subway. I was videotaping this dude. He was like, I don't know why. So I was like, he was like watching this video. He had his phone, and just like people around him, and I just saw this like this flopping, and I was like, what is that? So I got a little closer, and it was a woman getting banged on his phone, and he just like not even hiding,
like nothing,
just there, just like
it's like,
really
like
right
his
now,
daily, like his newspaper. It's just like
like a regular movie. Just like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this cartoon right now, you know, but it wasn't a cartoon.
Oh gosh, my word. Wow. Okay, so that's one tip. Another is, so if you're single, experiment with your experience of sex. Like if you're dating someone, for example, like, you know, like start to experience like maybe sexting. If you're not good at that, I feel super awkward at sexting. I'm just like,
really?
A little bit. Yeah, it's kind of. When I'm into
it,
when I'm into it, it's good. And then like, the thing about sexting is that it doesn't, it's not like it comes with an invitation. It's just like, hey, what's up? It's a conversation, and then it leads into that. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like busy right now. Like, I'm not like in the mood to do this right now. So I was trying, it's funny. So I was trying to play it. I was, sexting with this guy I'm dating, and I was trying to play it off. And then he said, one of my descriptions was like, sounds like you're talking about a new car. And I was like, oh.
What did you say? How did it start off?
I think I said, wow, nice.
Nice what?
I was like, oh. So I just was,
what did you say?
Honest. I said, wow, nice. That was like I don't
wow,
know. Like,
nice.
I don't know what else. Yeah. And he was just like, what are you talking about?
Wow, nice. That makes me feel sexy. So
yeah, it's like, because I just started to feel awkward. So I just told him, I said, honestly, something I like sexting like gives me anxiety a little bit. Like, it's just a little awkward for me. So I've been playing around with that. FaceTime, having like maybe like a joint masturbation session through FaceTime. That's been interesting. It's like, that's a whole totally different way to experience sex, because it's like the person is just, describing something, and you like have to visualize it first and then experiencing it. So it's just like a different, it takes more thought, more intention.
Another thing that you can do is, because I have like a friend with benefit kind of situation, and what we would do is we would send each other the links to each other's porn that we watch. And for me, I don't know why that turns me on, knowing that person is getting off on that video. I'm like, oh, that's so hot, So I think that's another thing that I find very attractive.
Yeah.
Sending each other videos that you like.
Yeah, and sending like cute audios throughout the day. Like, I know, with an iPhone, like the audios, disappear in like 2 minutes, so you can say whatever, be totally full self-expressed. It's gonna disappear at some point. It's just like, really, I think it's a time for play, not to take yourself like too seriously, and at the same time not think it's like a big old like sleepaway camp.
Right.
Because if you start to think like, okay, this is just vacation every day, because we don't know when it's gonna end. It could be another month and a half, or maybe 90 days. I mean, who knows? I don't know. You just want to like bring a level of like normalcy, and also not create like a bunch of projects to take on.
Right. Well, thank you so much for all your tips. It was really lovely to have a great conversation with you. So before we go, I have a couple of questions to ask that I ask all my guests. So what does a life of love mean to you?
A life of love. So what a life of love means to me is to be in the world with your heart open, and just being fearless about expressing that love to anyone or anything. It doesn't have to be, love, like partner love or anything like that. Just really, a life of love to me means that you're thinking about your legacy, because I really do believe that, when you're gone, and we're all at some point will be gone, what will be left is the love we had for something, for somebody. That's how people will speak of us, is how you were loved, how you loved someone else, what you loved. So it's like it's a core of everything. It's really the most important thing in the world.
It's almost like how many people's love bank are you filling up?
Yeah.
This is a new question. I'm just throwing this in there. So what do you think that you're learning by being in this quarantine, or what's happening in the world? Like, what are you learning about yourself and love and who you are based on the current state of the world?
What am I learning about myself? Well, what I'm learning about myself is that I'm much more resilient than I give myself credit for. I've had, if you've been in New York long enough, or you've been, how old you are, I've had this type of experience before, which is, 9/11 was one, and then there was a financial crisis, and then there's this. And this has a different flavor because of the health, aspect of it, and the fact that anybody can get it, anyone, and how deadly it is. So, what I've learned is that I've taken the lessons that I had in those times of crises, and go, okay, what am I going to create? What am I going to do? Versus sitting around waiting for life, for something to come to fruition, for normal to come back, and then missing out on something. So I'm fully experiencing things, experiencing life, really creating it as I go along. That's probably the thing I've learned the most. And the capacity the capacity that I have for humanity, a practice that I've been doing it for the past 2 weeks or so. It's praying for every siren.
Yeah, I know you wrote that.
And praying for every siren, because I'm near Brooklyn Hospital, and there's so many sirens.
Yeah, I'm there.
And it got to be a point.
Too. Yeah.
Oh my God, so many sirens. And I was just like, what is going on? And I thought, okay, what thing I can do that's most accessible to me right now is to pray. And inside of praying, what I realized is I'm imagining the person on their way to the hospital and how scary it must be for them.
Yeah.
They don't know if they're going to make it or not. If they're going to the hospital, they probably can't breathe, and they're going to be in isolation. I was like, wow, how scary is that? So I've really gotten the capacity to really be with humanity and my own humanity.
That's beautiful. And one of the last questions is, what does a juicy love life look like to you?
Juicy love life to me. Juicy love life to me means plenty of orgasm.
Here's to that.
Here's to that. And it's the best thing is to have a relationship where that person is your best friend, where you can be awkward and silly and embarrassed, and have someone else witness your shame and all of that. That to me is the ultimate in partnership and love, and I think that would be the epitome of juicy.
I love that. And last but not least, where can people find you online?
So you can find me online at lidiabonilla.com, and also at
for your last name,
Bonilla, BONILLA, and also at houseofplume.com.
Great. I'll have all that in the show notes of the podcast and YouTube. And thank you, Lidia, so much. And thank you guys for coming to the show. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and visit this wonderful lady. And, I really, I know we've known each other for about 2-3 years now. And it's really great to really get a sense of who you are and how you show up in the world. And I'm so honored and grateful that people like you exist and creating, this platform that you have for people to experience pleasure in all different aspects.
Thank you. I'm so honored that you have me on, and that I'm able to share, what matters to me, and to share that with your audience. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.